MovieWeb.com.
After that night, some say he was a changed man. That his spirit crossed over, giving him powers that can't be explained.
Jonah Hex.
Coffins. Thinking you might need aid.
Cut him down!
Jonah Hex.
You don't look so tough.
Hey, Hex, what happened to your face?
Cut myself shaving. What happened to yours?
So Jimmy, the first thing I wanted to ask you was if you could talk a little bit about, because I know you're an old school Jonah Hex fan going back to when you were a kid. So if you could talk a little bit about the film that you wanted to make versus the film the studio wanted to make, and then ultimately the sacrifices and compromises you were able to make the film that audiences are going to see.
Well, I think the studio obviously has it wasn't really obviously isn't familiar and is less concerned about a core fan base than the larger audience, because obviously filmmaking is a business and you have to try and get outside that. And Jonah Hex has a, you know, in the grand scheme of things, it's not Superman or Batman. He's got a very small readership who I want to stay loyal to, who I care very much about, who are very difficult to please, obviously. But being a fan myself of the comic, you know, one of the good things about Jonah is that we had some latitude. From the John Albano stuff, from the old school stuff, the hard-bitten Western, the obviously Clint Eastwood-esque stuff. I mean, really, if we stayed faithful to that, everybody would have told us we were ripping off Sergio Leone and Clint Eastwood. So you can't really do that. And we didn't want to do the Mad Max version from the 80s with spiky shoulder pads and stuff. But also, we pulled a little element of all of it in, and I think it's kind of being faithful more to the global body of work. And I'm friends with Jimmy and Justin, Palmiotti and Gray, and you know, we talked to as many of those guys as we could. They stayed involved in the process the whole time. And I think for the most part, we stayed faithful to some really core things about Jonah Hex that are important. Like, for instance, they didn't want us to do the rope over the mouth. And that's something that I really thought was very, very important because, I mean, it's in every single version of the comics. So that's the kind of stuff, you know, his origin story's been told a bunch of different ways, so there was some latitude.
Yeah.
So I feel like, you know, we kind of had to make it a modern action film. I think if we would have made like a real true early 70s paced film, people would have been like texting each other like WTF ? So yeah, you know, you kind of got to keep your foot on the gas pedal.
You know, I love the narration in the film.
Yeah.
And I know it wasn't in the original script.
No,
I felt like
not.
it really tied the movie together. Could you talk about the importance of Jonah telling his own story?
Yeah, I mean, that was partially Jimmy, that was partially Andrew Lazar, it was partially Akiva Goldsman, and just saying, and we started all riffing on what it could be, you know, and then you do different variations of it. I mean, I think initially it was just to clarify the story, and then we thought, no, it not only clarifies the story, it enhances the story. And then from that voiceover came the comic book panels. And so everything kind of lent to itself, and it was a snowball effect in what started enhancing the movie. We had a very base movie in the beginning, and I think it was great, but I think it was too much like the spaghetti westerns. It looked like too much of a copycat. Whereas when we started to get into additional shooting and started to get into editing and popping things around and reconstructing it, I think there was a much better movie than we anticipated.
Yeah, well, and you mentioned the reshoots, and obviously no film wants to have to do reshoots, but it seems to me
additional
like it was almost
shoots. It's
additional
different than
shoots.
reshoots.
But it seems like it was almost a blessing in disguise because it afforded you the opportunity to get great actors like Jeffrey Dean Morgan and Aidan
I don't
Quinn
think it was a
and
blessing in disguise. It was just no. I don't think it was compensatory. You know, I think it was one of those things that, like, how can we make this even better? I don't think it was, oh my God, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do?
Right.
I think it's, you know, you always have in this, but if there was more humor, you know, it would be way, way, way better. Or there's some special effects and all this kind of stuff, but what if we made it practical? It'd be more human. It'd have more of an impact. So then you do that.
You still got that Derringer in your bustle?
No, I took it.
What about that knife in your garter?
Took it.
What about that?
Took it all, Jonah.
Well, searched you pretty darn good, didn't they?
Wouldn't you?
All right, look, here's what we're gonna do. You shout to the guard, get him over here, use your feminine wiles and whatnot. When he gets close, what the hell?
To little Black's mama didn't raise no fool.
Tallulah.
Lala's a nickname.
Tallulah.
And I love the reveal at the end that Megan Fox's character is actually Tallulah Black. Can you talk about when that decision was made and to sort of incorporate this great character from the comic books?
Well, I love that. I love Tallulah, and I love the idea of her. And, you know, Jimmy Palmiotti was the one that, you know, and I love him. He was like, dude, you know, Megan Fox should play Tallulah Black, and it was a great way to kind of fit it in there for her to reveal to her longtime boyfriend that her real name's Tallulah. I don't know. It just seemed like a cool fitting thing to do.
Could she wear the eye patch in the sequel? Is that something that could end up happening?
Maybe she could get her eye poked out somewhere along the way.
Yeah, totally. And can you tell me a little bit, because I know your background's from animation, can you talk about the animated scene in the beginning and the importance of working with DC to kind of get an artist to do that? Because it's a great sequence.
Cool. I mean, we really wanted to, Eduardo Riso did the drawings, and Alex Sinclair did the inks, and I wanted sort of like modern comic book artists to have a component of the movie. And I wanted to really sort of have one foot in that world and sort of prepare the audience. We have this like very traditional sort of Civil War sequence that kind of sets the tone for the movie, but then we remind everybody that we're in a graphic novel. And it was important to kind of set up the idea that Jonah Hex has all these legends and there's all this lore, and to really kind of connect it back to the comic book world and use real comic book artists to do it. And I felt like that was an important thing to do and a fun thing to do. And so, you know, Picture Mill animated the elements for us and did a great job. And it was just important to me to kind of do that, you know?
Jonah Hex.
He's the voice you wanted.
You surely have done us quite a favor.
Transaction's all it was. I'll collect my $100 bounty on him and be on my way.
That there, Mr. Hex, was more of a limited time offer.
But you'll pay it all the same.
Oh, hell, Mr. Hex. There's an unscrupulous man or two paid double that for your stinking hide.
I have coffins. Sure you don't need 8?
Cut him down!
And then the ending, you can totally see like another movie, more stories for Jonah, of Jonah's death. I mean, was that something you would be interested in doing, returning for sequel?
Always, and I
playing
said
this
that
character
during
again?
the shooting. I mean, this was a very, very tough shoot, as you well know. You know what I mean? And it's very, very, you know, once you're out there and it's, you know, it's hot and you got the prosthetics on and all that, and you think, oh my God, I'll never do this again, kind of thing. But then afterwards, you look back on it and you go, wow, I really appreciate the way this has turned out, and we could take this direction, this movie, any direction that we wanted to. Yeah, so I mean, all that's going to be determined on whether it does well and this and that and whatever, man. I love the movie. I'm happy with it. You know, anything can be a franchise at some point. You know what I mean? But if the movie itself and by itself, I'm proud of it for sure.
That's one of the things about Hex is he can do anything and go anywhere. So he's that kind of guy that he rides off one direction and gets into trouble over there, and you know, he's an anti-hero that gets himself in and out of all kinds of messes. So Jonah can go anywhere.
Still got that knife in your garter?
They took it.
Still got that derringer in your bustle?
They took it all, Jonah.
Well, searched you for darn good, didn't they?
Wouldn't you?